Welcome back to another video. My name is Akil. These videos are documenting my journey towards finding the meaning and expanding the scope and scale of productivity through the company of Adaro. If you don't know who I am, basically I started a company and we do lead follow-up. So where we follow up with leads that come in for businesses. And my goal is to, like I said, expand the scope and scale of productivity. So in this video, we're going to be talking about everything that happened since the last video. There's a kind of a decent amount. We had a couple failed trials, I got one of the clients that canceled back at a lower price because, well, I'll talk about that. And then I have another client that canceled like almost 4 or 5 months ago that I reached out back to see if they would be interested at a lower price. That client I'm going to be starting for tomorrow. And yeah, we'll be talking about that. We'll, of course, be talking about all of that, and then we'll be talking about just like some other random topics at the end as usual. So yeah, enough with that. Let's get on with the video. So first things first, we can start where we left off on the last video. So basically, at the last video, we were kind of about to do, or we were like maybe in process of running. I think we were about to start. We were about to start a trial for a gym, as well as basically like this solo person who was like an insurance agent. I was also going to start like a third trial, but that person ended up getting delayed until like about like right now. I'm planning to start that person's trial maybe in the next few days to maybe at the end of the next week. But yeah, so we had two trials. So one of the trials actually went pretty well. It was for a gym in like the Texas area. And basically I can kind of just go over like what happened with both. So basically like the gym trial, it went good. We had good bookings, we had good reach outs. But basically, again, like before, kind of with another one of the trials, this gym was kind of looking for something pretty specific that I don't think any like third party could ever deliver. Basically, we were getting bookings and we were doing pretty well, but I guess maybe he just didn't like the tonality of like me over the phone, or basically he just didn't like the fact that I wasn't like asking a lot of questions to the leads or something. Maybe it was like kind of like a misunderstanding on what he wanted and what I wanted. But in the end, even though we got a bunch of bookings and even though he liked the service, like everything outside of it, he said he'd prefer just to hire somebody internally. Which I mean, again, when you're dealing with like owner operated businesses, sometimes there's no way I'm obviously going to know as much as like the owner on the phone or something like that about their service or their offer. So I mean, like again, I have to kind of just go back to, okay, objectively, did I accomplish what I wanted to with the service, right? Like, okay, as far as like service goes, did we call every lead quickly? Yes. Did we actually get consistent bookings for the number of leads that came through? Yes, we did. Actually, we got a decent amount of bookings. I can't remember the exact numbers, but the booking rate was actually pretty good and actually slightly better than some of the other trials we ran. So I mean, like objectively, we did get bookings. We got a lot of conversations. So like, what can I say? There's objectively like, what can I improve? I mean, yeah, unfortunately, there's no way for me to necessarily like make it so that the service is 100% customized to like every single business perfectly, where we like know every single one of their like pricing decisions for each and every granular service. It's not physically possible, obviously, to do that. I mean, if they provide a script, I can kind of ask different types of questions. I feel like there might have been a miscommunication there where like he told me to do something. It was never really written down, so maybe he expected something different and we did something different. But at the end of the day, again, we did get bookings and all of that. So I mean, that part might just be like more semantics rather than like, okay, like booking rate and actual like results wise. Basically, I'm trying to say that maybe it was just like it just wasn't the right fit. I'm not sure. Obviously, this has happened in the past, so maybe it could be like signal, but it also could be noise, right? Like again, like it's just not enough of a sample size to say, okay, objectively this can't work, because I've had clients that are paying for multiple months, so maybe it's just not the right fit. But yeah, I guess that's what happened to the first gym trial. As far as the solopreneur, okay, so there was basically there was like a solo, basically like an insurance agent, right? This insurance agent, she basically like sells insurance on behalf of another company, but she wanted us to follow up with her leads that she was getting from the advertising she was running to get like basically people that are interested in life insurance. And I could already tell this was not going to be a fit, like kind of at the start. But at this point, like, because the only reason I could tell is because she was like, this is not even a business, really. It's just really like almost like I'm trying to help a real estate agent or something. It's just like I'm trying to help like a solo person. So, one, when you're trying to help a solo person, they don't have very good systems that are already existing in place. She also has zero idea of like how her conversions actually were before. So all I really did was just make it transparent how bad her marketing was. That's really all we did. So then it kind of made for her, I bet you, probably, I'm not sure, but probably on her side, it made it look like we were a bad service. But in reality, we did follow up with every single lead very quickly. But out of the leads, she only got like maybe 2 or 3 leads a day. And basically, honestly, all of them were spam. I think out of the entire like 25 leads that we got, or whatever it was like 20 leads in the week. I think only one person was a real person that actually had a conversation with us, and it wasn't a spam number. And that one person said they were going to call back, and then that was that. So one, that's not enough sample size, obviously, and then two, it's just like, yeah, it's just at that point, I can't even really like show that we're a good service. I can't, like how we talked about in the last video, when you're dealing with like a small business or like a really tiny solopreneur, you can do everything right and it just still won't work out because it's a solopreneur. They're not gonna value the actual service. They're gonna be looking at, at the end of the day, they're gonna be trying to think about, okay, did I make money from this? But when fundamentally the inputs itself are wrong, like if I don't have good leads, there's no amount of follow-up is gonna turn a spam lead into a buyer, right? No amount of times I call, a wrong number, is it gonna actually turn into a buyer? It's not, obviously that's not how it's gonna work. So there's nothing really I could do there. But yeah, it was just a bad fit from the start. That was just a pure, there's no way, there's no service that would have ever worked for that type of person, because she simply just doesn't even have lead flow. There's no quality in marketing. She doesn't even know her marketing. She outsourced it to a third party. And on top of that, there was nothing really stopping her from just following up with 2 leads a day. It's not like a complicatedly high amount. Usually for this type of service, it's like, okay, they're getting 5-10 leads a day. They're having the front desk is constantly busy. They're having treatments going on. The owner might be like a person working in the business. It doesn't make sense to, kind of divert their attention to do lead follow up and then miss like a person that's coming in. Then it makes sense to have that outsourced. But for this, like for a solopreneur, I could already tell kind of going in. I didn't know originally when I first got the lead, but then as she kept telling me like the information, I could kind of realize it wasn't a fit. But I said, okay, whatever. For the experience, I'll just run the free trial. But I could already tell like it just wasn't going to work. And then after the free trial ended, she wasn't interested in continuing, which is what I expected. But anyway, I did learn a decent bit, like in terms of like, connecting with different CRMs and kind of just obviously employing the system again. There were a few refinements that I made during this time as well. So during this time, I spoke with, so I guess this is kind of interesting. The gym, right? The gym had a marketer, and that marketer I kind of directly spoke with. And this marketer, right? They actually do marketing for multiple different gyms. And it's not just this gym, but they do marketing for multiple different gyms. And during this time, he was like, I gave him like a look into my system. He said it's actually a really nice system. It's really nice. It could be useful. But then he told me like he told me like a potential thing, and I tested this, and I realized it wasn't a good idea. But I did test it just to try it. At the time, I thought, okay, it could potentially make make the service a little bit more desirable. I don't know, but basically he said, okay, you have obviously the number of leads that came in, the number that are not interested, the number that were wrong number or spam, and the number that are booked. Those are like obviously going to be the major categories, right? But then he said, okay, as a marketer, I also want to know how many leads were connected with, like how many of the leads that, let's just say you got 20 leads, right? How many of those leads actually picked up the phone? Not necessarily were they wrong number or not interested, but how many of them were actually reachable? And that kind of gives them an idea of like the lead quality and how well we can actually reach leads as a follow-up service. But what I realized is if I use that as a metric, then it artificially makes my service look like something it's not, which is that fundamentally, what can I change about the connected rate? Basically nothing, because any lead that comes through, right, we're going to be calling, texting, and emailing as soon as they come in, and over multiple days. So fundamentally, if I'm going to be doing that same consistent system, what benefit does it offer me to put connected, right? Let's just say like, okay, out of 20, only 15 got connected, or 15 got connected with on 1 week. Then the next week, 19 got connected with. So like if I did the exact same process every time, like what benefit does that offer anybody? It's just a waste of time even tracking the metric. And it's also extra work because every time somebody responds, I have to tag them with connected or something like that. And then also have like the system automatically tag them whenever they shoot a text message back. It's just extra work for no reason. And if you want to see if a lead is connected, basically you already have that between not interested and wrong number and booked. If a lead hasn't done one of those 3 things, it doesn't really matter if they responded or not because it's just irrelevant. It clearly the offer wasn't good enough for them to book or give us a reason that they're not interested or whatever. So basically, it's just a useless metric. I mean, even for a marketer's perspective, you don't actually care that much about necessarily, okay, how many like we're connected with, as much as you care about the booking rate and the not interested rate and all of that. And you can also kind of infer the connected rate just based off the booking rate, and you can also just kind of quickly see, you know, if you, okay, let's just say I'm a marketer, and you know, I'm marketing for a business, and I can just go onto the CRM and just click through like all the contacts, and within 5 minutes I can see 55 contacts and all the conversations, and based on that I can make a rough estimate, like, okay, only about half of these contacts are responding, so maybe I should change the targeting or something. It really doesn't offer much benefit to have a contacted tag. It just adds extra work, and from an owner's perspective, it makes it look like, oh, they have a low contract rate, so the follow-up service must not be good. Where when the reality is that it doesn't really matter. Like I said, like for us, it doesn't, like, even whether it's a low contracted rate or a high contacted rate, it really connected rate, it really makes no difference in the service, because we're still going to be following up with every new lead consistently and quickly, right? It doesn't change the follow-up service at all, right? We're following up with every lead the same exact way every time. So yeah, that's kind of like, I guess it was an interesting idea. I did test it and I realized it was I was willing to test it. I should have probably looked at it like at the start and kind of just realized it was probably not going to be a great idea, but I did test it and I did say, like, okay, it's pretty shit. Anyway, aside from that, I think after the trials ended, this was again around the time where I remember last video, I was like, okay, we're going to try to get consistent clients at $500, because we realized that, okay, you know, if I'm pricing higher than that, because they're super small businesses, they're just going to churn because they're not able to actually extract the value properly because they're small businesses. So what I realized, I was just going to do $500, and the easiest way to now get clients at $500 is actually just to reach back out to the clients that canceled specifically because of price. And I can think of 2 clients that canceled specifically because of price, and that is the most recent client that canceled, where they were at like $750 or something, or $995 or something, and they canceled because of price. And I said, okay, fine, we can make it work at. I just reached back out to them and said we can make it work at 500. So they basically got into the service. I started the service, and I have officially 1 client. And then there was another client. This was like from like 4 or 5 months ago, that canceled specifically because of price, and they also are willing to kind of restart the service. So I'll be starting for them tomorrow or a day after tomorrow. So yeah, basically that's 2 clients potentially. Well, 1 client consistently. That next client, since it's been so long, I guess we'll first just run it and then, you know, see if they consistently stay. If they consistently stay for like a couple months, then yeah, it's going to be you know, what do you call it? The second client. And then the next trial that I'm going to be running also, which starts in a few days probably, whenever they give me the last piece of information. It's another trial for a med spa. This is actually the consultants. So there was like a med spa. I probably talked about this like multiple videos ago, but there's a med spa consultant who's basically like a person who helps multiple med spas, and she's pretty hands-on with the med spa. So she's going to be the next trial for a med spa, one of her clients, and if it works out for that one, she also has 1 more med spa that might be a good fit. So that's potentially 2 clients as well. That could be there if it works out. So, and these are all going to be priced at 500 every 4 weeks, not any higher, because I just want to make basically a consistent. The ideal goal is to have 3 or 4 consistent clients, and then I can, you know, offload the follow-ups to a VA to actually see if the numbers are actually the same. And the close rates are the same, and then also to create like a consistent system where I can train somebody. Then the goal is to probably reach out to like bigger marketers and then land clients that are probably getting like 50 to 100 leads a day. And the reason that I want to do that is because those are clients that actually, you know, if they get consistent follow-up, they can save a lot of money instead of hiring somebody internally, as well as they'll be able to see a much bigger you know, change in conversions. If they don't have a consistent system already, they most likely probably do, but if they don't already have a really good system, our system will be able to kind of make a big difference there. But yeah, I think those also are going to be a little bit harder to land, those types of clients, because they probably already have a system. And if they're already getting 50 to 100 leads a day, that's a decent number of leads, right? So it's the cost of switching is higher in case, oh, this new company might be worse or whatever. So really, it's just a volume game. If you reach out to enough of these businesses or marketers who have these types of businesses, eventually, one of them might be switching a service, they might be trying new things. So eventually you'll be able to get somebody. And the goal would be to if they're getting 50 to 100 leads a day, the goal would be to price them at like, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. And that would be ideally, once you get land a bigger client, obviously this is all theoretical, but more likely they'd be to stay because, you kind of become a part of their business, and they're unlikely to cancel for arbitrary reasons because they're going to, at the end of the day, see that, okay, this costs this much, it brings in this much revenue. Whereas small businesses, you could do, again, like we've talked about this before, but you could do everything perfectly, but people still cancel. But yeah, that's kind of the thought process there. That's everything so far. It's been about almost, I think, it's now July 12th today. I think the last video I filmed was like May 30. So it's been like a month and almost 2 weeks now. So it's a month and a half almost. So yeah, I mean, in the last month and a half, I've done a shitload of DMs. So right now, I don't know, like, I guess so far in all of the gyms, this is probably a little bit longer than that. I started doing DMs for this, like, I think end of April or something. But yeah, I've so far, like yesterday or day before, I think yesterday I finished all the gyms in the entire country DMs wise. So that was 14,800 DMs for just gyms. And if you include spas, close to like 29,000, it was like 29,900 or something. It's like 29,000 basically, almost 30, but 29,000 DMs so far from both. Like, like last, like what, 6 months ago when I was doing the DMs, including that, to now, it's about 29,000 DMs. So that's pretty good. In the gyms, I had one trial, obviously, from that one, the trial that didn't work out. So that's obviously, it means it works. And I've had multiple different interested people. I've had a couple calls. So, obviously DMs works. So I'm just gonna keep doing the DMs. Basically, after I finished yesterday, I was kind of thinking over, okay, what should I be doing next? I was considering like, okay, does it make sense to try and DM marketers directly now? And I still don't think it does. I still think it makes sense just to do another service thing that's very close to gyms and med spas, like another, what do you call it? Like a very closely related business. I chose wellness centers. Well, we'll get into that. But the reason is because I don't think it makes sense to do marketers, because it kind of goes back to what I have said probably before, but I think marketers kind of need some more proof than just, one or two clients. And if they look at the account and they watch the recordings, obviously it's still me doing the follow-ups. So it'll be a little bit of a harder sell trust-wise for them to refer me a bigger client, or any client for that matter, because obviously their brand is on the line. If they refer me, and then in their eyes, they might say, okay, if I refer you and then you just, you go blank, then that obviously looks bad on me. So yeah, and really a referral would only be helpful if it's a bigger client. I don't really want any referrals for a smaller client. It wouldn't really make much sense for the business. There wouldn't be any margin too, and it's just higher churn, as we already have mentioned it. And the second you go above $500 a month, any small business is just going to be more likely to cancel. It just doesn't make any sense. So basically, I decided, okay, it just doesn't make much sense to DM marketers, so we're just going to DM direct. So yeah, that's basically, we're just going to keep doing the DMs. We have so many different business types to DM, right? We have wellness centers, so I'll go through the entire country of wellness centers. That'll probably take 2 months, like it just took 2 months to do DMs for the gyms. So I could probably say, yeah, confidently, it'll probably take about another month and a half to 2 months to do the what do you call, wellness centers. And then there's also, I was considering doing like orthodontics, so it's like cosmetic dentistry, stuff like that. I was also considering doing chiropractors as well. So all in all, I probably have like another 6 months of DMs at least. And hopefully by that point, I have 3 or 4 concurrent $500 clients. And if I don't have $500 clients by then, well, it's okay, because I can still go back through and turn on the secondary DM tool, the little auto DMer that I made, and go back through and DM all of those guys again. If that still doesn't work, well, I can just go back to DMing med spas, because at that point it'll probably easily be more than a year since I did my first DMs for the med spas. So I may as well run through the entire country of med spas again. So yeah, and then, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a little far ahead. Hopefully by that time, again, we'll have like 3 or 4 clients. But yeah, I mean, I think if we don't, then I think long before that, I'll just reduce the price to 250, um, so that to test if I can actually again offload the service and then get what do you call it, a bigger client. That's the goal. So yeah, yeah. I mean, realistically, I think I'll get clients at 250 too. So it's like if that's the worst case scenario, then I'll do that too. It's not that big of a deal. I can already think of like 2 or 3 clients like in the past. I can probably just reach out to say, hey, it's 250 now, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, sure, and then they'll probably go with the service. But anyway, aside from all that, yeah, that's basically kind of where we're at as far as the business wise. Just trying to really hammer out those DMs and all of that. And then there's one more thing in the last what do you call it? So in the last also a few weeks, I realized the scheduling of the posts. So a couple things have happened actually for the content. The content thing is I don't mean these content. I mean like the content where I post one kind of follow up piece of content on each channel: Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all those, right? On basically what I noticed is like, okay, I post all these pieces of content, right? I've been posting now for probably like, because I scheduled it out for like 6 months, right? And I started scheduling it out like starting in May. So it's been almost, I would say like, yeah, it's probably been about 2 months now, maybe a little bit under. It's like been 1 month, and yeah, it's about let's just say 2 months. 2 months for, uh, 2 months is like probably a rounded number of how long it's been. So I've been constantly posting, consistently posting for about 2 months now, every single day. So what I noticed is one, YouTube, I consistently get 0 views on the shorts, like consistent, like actually 0 views. I think YouTube, I tried a couple different things like stopping posting, doing different things. I think YouTube just registers the account as like a spam account or something, so it just gets 0 views. TikTok is the same thing, 0 views. Every other channel, well, I guess Twitter too, Twitter or whatever, X, also 0 views on every single post. So for those 3 platforms, I mean, it's already being posted for the next 6 months, and I'll just continue posting on it. Hopefully, maybe they stop recognizing me as spam. They probably won't, but hey, who cares? And then, but the other ones like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, those are the only 3. Those 3, I'm not getting recognized as spam. So they're all getting consistent views, and they're actually getting consistently more and more views over time. So that's good. And I think I'm going to continue doing that. But what I realize is it really doesn't take that long to schedule out posts. Like I'm already pretty far ahead. Like basically, if I spend another week, and I already made so many posts at this point that if I spend one more week just scheduling for like an hour and a half a day, I'll pretty much have everything until like April of next year scheduled out. So that's like a long time. So I don't really have to worry about that much. It's not really that big of a priority anymore. It's more like just monitor it, look at the things that are performing well. Next time I do make a new batch of content, just make those that are performing well, like towards the ones that are performing well. And that's kind of the content philosophy there. As far as like, do I think it's going to get leads? Probably not anytime in the near future. No. The goal is just to like, keep posting, make sure that all the accounts look legitimate, and slowly build an audience over time. At the end of the day, obviously, it's like it may not directly turn into a sale or something like that, but the goal is like, okay, maybe they see a DM of mine, they check my thing, they watch a short, and then I DM them again 2 months later, and they're like, okay, yeah, maybe let me respond or something like that. The goal is just to be like an extra piece of a touch point type of thing. That's why the amount of time invested into it is not very high. The goal is like the max amount of time I want to invest in it is like not actually, it's really not that much time, because it's like an hour a day for a few weeks, a month, and then I can schedule out. It really doesn't take too long. It's like 1 week of work, and you got like 4 or 5 months worth of content. It's really not that bad. So that's the content side. As far as, I think this is interesting. So I kind of looked back, because like, okay, so I guess this is kind of getting into like a philosophical tangent, but I kind of looked into like, okay, so obviously I invest into like, stocks. That's how I kind of, that's exactly what I did when I took everything I made from real estate. I didn't spend any of it. I just put it into basically speculation. I just put it into stocks. And then like obviously singular stocks, not broad indexes, but I put it into singular stocks. But obviously at the time when I did it, that was like yeah, obviously it goes back a long time because I've been investing for a while, but I started investing like years ago. So, but what was my investment philosophy back then, and what have I learned till now? So obviously I would say exceptionally lucky as far as my investments. I mean, pretty much as lucky as you can get with my investments in the past few years, right? Like I originally, when I first started investing, I invested in like Tesla, Shopify, and I watched those stocks double, and then I sold, and then I bought into other stocks that like AMD or I think there's another one, Intel. I bought Intel, and I watched those stocks also soar. Intel, I didn't capture as much of the gains as I could have. Intel went up to like 120. I sold it at like 55 or 60. But I bought it at 20, so it went up so fast. Like I bought it at 20, and then within like 4 months, it was at like 55. I was like, holy shit, this is like, what the hell is going on here? So I sold off. But anyway, AMD, I captured a lot of the gains. I bought it at like 80 to 100, and I sold it at like a very high price, like I don't know, like 300 to 400 in around that. I sold it in like waves, but like between 300 and 400, and that was all in the course of a year. But again, that's just like complete luck, right? That's like, I'm not gonna like sit here and take that as like, oh, Kailash is a genius investor. That was just pure luck, right? I mean, like I didn't even like, the reason that those happened is I was like, oh, okay, cool, this AMD looks like a steal, looks like a cheap deal. Do I think CPUs are going to be? I actually know AMD because I have it in my, when I built my computer, I built it with an AMD CPU, so I kind of do understand the business model, obviously, and they are getting into like thinking about the GPU space as well. But you know, I mean, I don't think they're ever going to be able to compete with like NVIDIA or anything because NVIDIA has CUDA. But anyway, the point is, CUDA is like their software. That's like kind of the main differentiator between NVIDIA and any other competitor, is that it's really hard to compete with CUDA because it's like they use 20 years of skills to actually. Who cares? It doesn't even matter. I'm not invested in NVIDIA. But anyway, point is, past performance was just basically luck, essentially. So what I'm making sure to do now, moving forward, obviously I already have some investments now. I spun that, that amount after I sold it, mainly into cash, actually. The largest position right now is just in short-term treasuries. But that's because of flexibility, just in case for the business or, whatever. That's the best place to keep it right now for me. But anyway, this is all besides the point. It's all irrelevant. The point is, I am putting more of an emphasis on actually understanding what I'm investing in before I invest in it. So what does that mean? Okay. Well, obviously in the past, when I invested in something, my investment thesis, like I said, was I looked at it. I was like, okay, do I understand the company and what they sell? Okay, yeah, I understand what Shopify does. I've used their products. I've used blah, blah, blah. So I bought the company. Do I understand what AMD does? Yeah, I've used their products. I understand obviously what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So I invested in the company. And it looks like it's a steal because it's down from highs. It's the same way I invested in Intel. I've also, obviously used Intel products. I believe that Intel was kind of like a steal at $20, blah, 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 blah. That was pure luck. The government invested in it, whatever, and it went up. Point is, my investment thesis was like, okay, look at the stock. Has it gone down significantly? Do I use the company? Do I think their business model will grow over time? Buy. Very obviously kind of, it's not really like, some type of like genius level, a research or something. It's very basic level research. It happened to work out, but honestly, if you're going to probably take that and then expand that out for like a decade, it probably would not work out very well compared to just like investing in an index. But anyway, the point is, I don't know, I never get to the point, but the point is, moving forward, I'm actually looking at the stocks I invest in consistently. What the hell am I saying? I'm looking at it with deep research, right? Deep research. What does that mean? That means I'm going to be reading the 10Ks. I'm going to be reading the quarterly reports and actually understanding the company. You might be like, why are you wasting your time with all this? Just put it in an index. Well, you're absolutely right. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with most of it. But anyway, the reason I want to do that is because it's actually a twofold thing, right? One, it's not like I'm doing this as like the main thing in my life or something. It's just like, when I see a stock that I like, I'll spend like 30 minutes to an hour a day for like a couple weeks just reading up on the stock, looking through all the disclosures they have, understanding the company, all of that before I invest in it. This is just like, honestly, like this is proper due diligence. It's like, would you buy a house without even understanding anything going on, like the neighborhood, the quality of the house, when it was built, all just or the neighborhood sales, or it's like you would do proper due diligence, right? It's like if I'm going to put money into something, it's better just to do proper due diligence and actually understand what you're doing. Two, I think it also has good corollary skills that you learn just from understanding, reading, and being well read onto different types of businesses. Like obviously, if I just do this, over in the next 6-12 months. And I understand a few businesses, just the ones that I like, even if I'm not going to invest in them, just to understand, right? It has good. It's just a good skill to have for the future. I'm not saying that I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to this. It's just something that I noticed that I really. It's like, okay, if I'm going to do something and I'm going to put my money behind it, which money is just it's basically, you could use that as a proxy of stored energy or stored capital or whatever you want to call it. And if I'm going to invest in something that I don't even understand, that's just essentially like it's like pissing into the wind. It's like what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? So in the same way, like if I was going to invest in my own business, right, I would fully understand what I'm doing before I actually invest in it. It's not to say you're not gonna. It's not like you don't take risks. It's that you just want to understand what is the risk that you're taking before you actually take it. I guess it's just a long-winded way of saying that I want to take. I want to take what I'm. I want to make sure I fully understand what it is I'm getting into when I buy a stock before I buy it, instead of just buying a random ticker that I think is interesting because I've used the product a few times and then hoping for the best. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I guess that was a really long 30-minute or whatever it was explanation of my new stock thesis. I guess my new man, I totally messed this one up. But anyway, yeah, I guess in summary, the point is do more due diligence, actually go through, understand it. Not to the point where you're, looking at 35-year-old annual reports for some company like Nike or something. You're like out here reading the freaking pre-IPO S1 or something. That's not what I mean, you could do that, but that's not what I meant. What I meant is just like fully understanding what it is you're getting into, what is being priced into the stock. Where does the stock actually have to go for you to actually gain anything? Is it overvalued still? Is the reason that it's currently at a discount because of an actual business model issue? Or is it because there's actually fundamentally something wrong with the company? There was fraud discovered. There was, big change in management. There was a big problem with one of their suppliers, or, it's, if you don't fully understand what it is you're buying into, you're just basically randomly buying shit. You're not actually even understanding anything. So yeah, understanding is always the most important thing. Anyway, so enough about all that. I think we can conclude basically the what do you call it? The stuff that's happened so far in the business, right? In the business so far, just more DMs. That's what I'm doing, and yeah, looking forward next few weeks for the business specifically. Again, it's gonna be more DMs. It's hopefully I can get this next client into a long-term paying client. Hopefully I can get those trials to become clients. And if I can get 4 concurrent clients, that would be wonderful, because then I could use that, hire a person, basically be break even, hopefully for a couple months, while I get that person to, like the VA, to do the job that I do on follow-ups consistently and correctly. And then I can reach out to marketers, show them, hey, here are the 4 consistent clients that I have that have been paying for a few months. You can view all of the recordings. You can log in if you'd like. I can give you access, and you'll be able to kind of see what it is that we're offering. And if you recommend this, we'll give you, whatever. I don't know. I have to figure out the commission structure, but I'll give them a percent of the sale or whatever it is, like the monthly, amount, And the bigger the client, obviously, maybe I could say the bigger the amount you'll get, or we can figure something out. Point is consistency. We're gonna keep getting those DMs. Last couple months is just pure DMs, bro. It's just DMs all day, every day. And then whenever I'm not DMing, I try to do 200 to 300. I actually been hitting 300 every single day. Today I only did 100 because I'm gonna film this. But after I do the 300, I then do some stock research. So yeah, that's it. But anyway, yeah, just gotta keep it up. Anyway, on to the philosophical, tangential, most entertaining part of the video. So first things first, I guess the topic is why people quit. So when I wrote this down, I guess I was probably in a different headspace, but right now I guess I'll talk about it. So I think I find it interesting. Like I guess the only reason I wrote this is because I obviously right now in the business, we're almost, I think, 9 months in. So I started it 9 months ago, right? Adaro, the business. And I can see, I think the reason I wrote this down is just because I could see why people quit when things don't start to, it starts to kind of look like they're working out. Like in my own example right now, it's been 9 months. I've had a couple clients, but I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still 1 client. And that client, I really only have still that's only paying like $500 a month. But it's really just break even, because after all, like I had to pay $300 for the Go High Level every month. I had to pay like $30 to Zapier. I had to pay like, I think it's like 20 or $30 for like the Google and all the emails and shit like that. So basically, at the end of the day, and then I also have to pay for the text messages and then phone calls for that sub account, and all of the A2P verifications for that sub account. That's like a monthly fee, and I have multiple sub accounts that also have like our backup accounts. So when it's all said and done, it costs like $497. It's probably like exactly a break even, or I actually might be at a slight loss when you actually factor everything in. But yeah, it's a light loss right now with one client, and it's basically to date, obviously, yeah, it's been like a net loss, probably like a few $1,000s since I started the business, right? And obviously that like in context, right? Or I guess I should probably start with, in a vacuum, that's like, oh wow, you spent like almost like a year on something and you basically got nothing out of it, essentially. So I can see why, like, okay, in a vacuum, like people would be like, oh damn, that's really shitty, and then they just stop. They'd be like, oh, this is never gonna work out, and they'd stop. Especially when it's like, okay, the leading indicators are like kind of inconsistent. You're not sure if like it's gonna actually like pan out into anything. You're not sure if obviously all of this effort is just gonna be kind of pointless. At that point, most people, not most people, but many people might decide, okay, hey, it's time to call it quits and then just quit. Obviously you could see that in a vacuum, but in context, right? It's like, okay, I learned all these skills. I understood this much. I understood about what kind of the pricing structures might work, what prices get churned. I've understood what businesses actually respond well. I've understood what are the best, people that actually find this problem comparatively, what type of business, the exact avatar that I'm looking for. And I have a roadmap of what could potentially, let's first exhaust all of these opportunities before we even make any decision on, stopping or pivoting or whatever it is. And that's my interpretation of, the idea is like, okay, yeah, obviously there's always going to be times where it's like, oh, this is never going to work out. Like, when I had 0 clients and everyone canceled, it felt like, oh, this is like never going to work out. But hey, at the end of the day, for me, I mean, I don't like, the idea is like, okay, does the idea, I guess the question would be, does the idea of quitting even come up? And the answer is obviously yes. But that is just more of like an emotional, like, oh shit, quit. This is so shit. But, I think, I forgot who said this. And I think it was from like a snippet in an interview, but I heard it once. I think actually, funny enough, it might be Andrew Tate who said this, but he said, the best way to interpret days is like, some days, it's like a ship, it's like a ship on the sea, right? Some days are going to be, like a nice calm day, there's not going to be any crazy waves. It's just going to be like a nice sunny day, that's a good day. And then some days, are just going to be like shit, it's just going to be like a fucking, there's like a whirlpool, there's a hurricane, it's super shit. But if you're sitting down like as the captain, like on the boat, right? Obviously on the sunny days, it feels really good. On the freaking shitty tornado days or hurricane days, it feels like shit. It feels like the ship is going to capsize. Everything is going to go badly. But the real truth is, you should just be seeing it from like a 300-foot view. You shouldn't be. If you're on the boat and you're really feeling every single emotion every single day, it's going to feel like shit. But if you try your best to like just zoom out and be like, hey, you know what? This is one of those sunny days. That's great. And hey, you know what? This is one of those shitty days where it's just like it's a whirlwind. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen is possibly happening right now. Then you can at least see from a 300-foot view, it's like, okay, yeah, this is one of those days. This, if we keep going on, eventually another sunny day will appear, right? Nothing lasts obviously forever on either side, because you're gonna die. So, what's the worst case scenario? I'm gonna, like, I always think about, okay, also like, it's in context. In context, what is so hard about what I'm doing? I'm chilling at home. I'm just doing my work every single day. I'm just constantly doing it. Go to the gym every day. I still have food. What changes about my life even if I do nothing? Basically nothing, obviously. But like, if you go back like a few hundred years, not even a few hundred. I mean, you go back like less than 100 years, and you're, people my age are being sent to war and being blown up. So it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, I much prefer to be where I am right now. It's like really not that big of a deal at all. And it's like, I don't know. In context, it's really not that big of a deal, right? It's like, okay, I guess I kind of like changed the entire question from quitting to like, I guess like how you interpret interpretations. But the point is like, what establishes the meaning of quit, right? I mean, and the goal is like, okay, what is my objective? My objective is to expand the scope and scale of productivity. Okay, what does that mean on a fundamental daily basis, right? What that means on a practical level is like, okay, every single action I take is within my understanding, the action that I think will help me get to my goal, right? And obviously, you're not going to be 100% perfect. Some days you may not be 100% perfectly on your routine, or you might eat too much or whatever it is and not stick to your diet or whatever it is. You obviously are not going to be 100% perfect. But the goal is like, okay, if I'm going to make a major decision, what is the ROI cost towards my objective, right? The only time I would choose to make a decision like, changing what I'm doing or quitting or whatever it is if that decision makes me get closer to my goal, which is why I left real estate, right? Because I felt like, okay, if I continue on real estate, I have a less likely path of getting towards my goal than stopping real estate and then doing a business. So in context right now, no matter how long this takes to not work, until there's a time where I can confidently say I've exhausted every single opportunity of this current business model. Like, I've tried, reaching out to marketers. I've tried reaching out to all kinds of different, businesses. I've done, an unreasonably high amount of work. I've tried with big businesses, small businesses, I've tried every single way to make this service work. And it's been probably a couple years or whatever it is, and it's still not working. Then potentially you could have the conversation of, okay, hey, we've exhausted pretty much every opportunity. This is what we've learned. This is what we can do to pivot that I think will work. So we can try pivoting a little bit, because there's so many things that I can use the same skills and pretty much the same model, but just tweak it slightly, and I could try it again, right? And I think eventually you'll get a product market fit if you do that, because unless obviously there's a fundamental error in something else that is even bigger with the business, like unless tomorrow, if tomorrow like an AI comes out and it's perfect, it just nails everything. Obviously, this is like probably like the odds of this happening are basically zero. But imagine tomorrow, like an AI, like OpenAI releases something, or Anthropic releases something. It's just perfect. It doesn't make a single mistake ever. It can completely, magically, click every single correct button, message every single lead perfectly, get them to book perfectly, run ads perfectly. Then yeah, obviously I'd probably have to change exactly what I'm doing, and then, probably pivot pretty heavily because, my business does not exist anymore. But first of all, I don't think that's ever going to happen because of just the way LLMs work. But two, it's just not even worth considering that type of thing. But unless, yeah, something fundamental changes, like, you're like selling newspapers, and then, I don't know, maybe like the entire city burns down or something. I don't know. Then obviously you're going to change your businesses because, you have nobody to sell to anymore. But yeah, unless something fundamental changes about the businesses, you have to, I think my perspective is I had to exhaust every single opportunity, because here's what I noticed, right? This is another reason I chose not to DM marketers, is because Alex Hormozi has this saying, it's like more, better, new, right? So first I'm going to do more of the thing that I already know, and then I'm trying to do the same thing that I already know better before I start touching new things. And the reason is because there's so many unknown unknowns, right? It's just like you have no idea what the fuck is going to go on. Let's just say like tomorrow, like if I start DMing, a perfect example is DMing marketers. I have no idea like the mistakes I might make, what I need to do differently, like the commission structure I have to make, what kinds of marketers I have to reach out to. There's just too many things I just don't know. It's like, why would I trade the thing that I already know if I keep doing DMs to direct businesses? Eventually, if I do enough of them, it will work, because I've had multiple trials, multiple calls. I've had, a lot of data that shows, yeah, if I do enough of this, yeah, it's slow, yeah, it's annoying, yeah, it's boring. But if I do enough of it, eventually I do get leads and I get clients. So if I already know it works, the only upside of new is like, oh, it might work better. But you don't actually know that because there's too many unknown unknowns. It might take me 3 months to actually figure out, okay, I have to DM this type of marketer with this type of message, have this type of commission structure in order to get deals. And that may have wasted a lot of time where I could have just got multiple clients. And again, like there's too many unknown unknowns. How do I know that the marketer will be okay with, any marketer will be okay with me just having 1 or 2 clients and then recommend me to their clients? There's too many, again, that's the issue with trying to pivot to like a new structure or whatever you're trying to do. So I guess that was kind of a big way to say, like, okay, quitting in context, right? In a vacuum, it sounds like, oh, like again, like in a vacuum, oh, you haven't done anything for the last year, you haven't made no progress. You're, basically, if you would have done anything, even probably like, shoveling shit, you probably would have made more money. And that's obviously objectively true. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm like some type of billionaire. That's not true. But, not yet anyway. But, yeah, obviously those are all objectively true things. But the point is, in context, does it really matter that I'm making income? Not really. I mean, what is the alternative? Like, not really anything. I was a real estate agent making basically $0. Is there anybody who's like forcing me to make income right now? The answer is no. Like, will my life change at all if for the next 2 years I still make nothing? No, my life will not change even a bit. Why is that? I guess you could call that lucky circumstances that, I'm not forced to make income to survive. But that's just the reality. It's like, use what you got. Yeah, I don't have to. I can just live with my parents, and I don't have to do anything. Like, as in, like, I'm working as hard as I can on my business, but like, I don't have to make income to pay rent or something. It's just not the case, right? So the point is, yeah, like, well, in context, the goal is just to absolutely exhaust all opportunities before we try to step into anything else, or change or pivot or whatever it is, right? You have to first, because objectively you'll automatically pivot because of the market, right? Like, for example, why did I pivot the price structure? Because I noticed the old price structure wasn't working. So I had to pivot something. So I pivoted the price. And slowly, right now I'm seeing, okay, I got one client that's staying. Hopefully the next client stays. And if it starts to work, then I know that was probably a better strategy for right now. And then, as I get to the next level, we can, figure out that. But that's kind of what I think about the idea of like quitting in that topic. Okay, this is actually an interesting topic because it's one I've actually thought about recently. And it's the idea of like, okay, it's the idea of like, how do you ensure the bucketed idea, like the entire 1,000-foot view is like, how do you ensure you're correct, right? And that's like, that might make zero sense, but basically the context that is kind of around that is like, okay, whether it be a big term that's being kind of coined around right now is like AI psychosis. And obviously I noticed this myself, is like, if you use an AI and you ask it a question, it's obviously going to be, and you start describing something, it's going to lean towards agreeing with you, regardless of your idea. You can get around that by asking it to be objective, but even to that degree, it'll still somewhat agree with your opinion. Why is that? That's just how the AI is coded, obviously. But so then how do you ensure, like, okay, when I'm doing research with AI, or when I'm doing, when I'm discussing something or I'm getting information, how do I ensure that I'm not getting like hallucinated or really biased information from the large language model that is trying to tell me information, right? Or like the idea that, like, if it's going to give me facts, how do I ensure that they're correct? Or if I'm going to make it, if I'm discussing with ChatGPT on like what decision I'm about to make in my business, how do I ensure that it's not giving me biased information, right? All right, so what does it basically mean to be misled, I guess, is the best way to start. So being misled obviously means that you're gonna be talking to, like, I don't know, let's just say you're talking to ChatGPT, right? And then you say something to ChatGPT that is actually probably that is incorrect, but ChatGPT agrees with you. Like, I don't know, maybe like you're a software engineer and you like painting, so you somehow convince yourself with ChatGPT that you should quit your job and become a painter because you're gonna be the best painter. You're gonna be like Van Gogh, and then you quit your job and then you start painting. Whether that's good, bad, who gives a shit? But the point is that you are essentially led on by something that isn't necessarily objective, right? So how do you avoid something like this from happening and changing what you do at a base level? Well, here's the thing. Okay, this will only happen if you have no tangible objective to basically hold you accountable or reason against. And this is what I mean, right? So let's just say I'm discussing something with ChatGPT, right? And we come to a conclusion, and it is completely wrong, but I think it's right because it's biased, right? Well, because I'm testing it against reality is literally the truth, right? You can't beat reality, right? If I make an ad with ChatGPT and the ad is shit, then reality will tell me it's shit because it just won't work, right? See what I'm saying? So the point is, how do you know that you're right? Well, you just test it against reality, right? So the point is here, like, okay, what is AI psychosis? That means you're making decisions toward things that are not, like, you're basically just making things that are not aligned with reality, right? So how can you ensure that you're aligned with reality? Well, it's to test against reality, right? It's basically reality, the world around you is the thing you test against in order to find something that is correct. So the point is, you're only going to lead yourself astray with like the AI psychosis thing if you don't have an objective that is measurably testable against. See what I'm saying? So let's just say I'm just, again, like, if I go back to the point, square one, okay, I have a business idea or whatever it is. I'm going to then test it against reality. You're never going to lead yourself you're never going to find yourself in an AI psychosis if you're testing against reality. Because if you test against reality, reality is the final arbiter. It doesn't matter what you and your AI come up with, or whatever it is, or fucking the LLM comes up with some random bullshit. If you test it against reality and reality shows that it's just not right, then unless you're delusional, you're going to then have to change something, right, in order to make it correct. Otherwise, you simply will not make money, you simply will not achieve the objective. So the point is, okay, how do you avoid AI psychosis? It is by having an objective metric. You're only going to find yourself, unless you're like trying to find happiness or something that's not measurable. If you're trying to find something that's not measurable, you can easily lead yourself astray. Like, oh, I don't know, I have some super special, cosmic ability. Then yeah, you can probably lead yourself astray with, ChatGPT. ChatGPT will convince you have some cosmic ability because in reality, you have no objective to measure that against. So then yeah, you'll find yourself, you'll find yourself like, oh yeah, I have telekinesis, and I don't know, you'll be some crazy shit because you have nothing to test against. You don't believe in reality as a whole. So that is just amplifying delusion. It's not really, it didn't create the delusion. It's just amplifying somebody who's already like, kind of crazy. So the point is, if you have reality to test it against, right, you could apply this to anything, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be with AI. It could just be like, okay, how do I ensure that I'm right? What does it mean to be right? How do I know that my ideology is correct? Your ideology is correct if you're able to achieve your objective with your ideology. That is it. If I am not able to become successful with expanding the scope and scale of productivity, it either comes down to one of three things. One is I just didn't execute properly. One is the ideology itself is not correct. Or three, both of those two things were correct, but somehow by happenstance I got like murdered or something on that, I wasn't able to accomplish the objective, or some other third party thing came in the way. But this is very unlikely because if you have a very long time horizon, the odds of this like actually giving you long-term, like a long-term hindrance to your goal is pretty low. So then it really comes down to the controllable things, which is your actions on a daily basis and obviously your ideology. So the point is, testing against reality is obviously the real is the thing that's going to is the thing that's going to distinguish between psychosis or delusion or whatever you want to call it and things that actually work, right? Because what even is delusion? It's just something that does not align with reality. It's just something that is not real. You believe in something that is not true, right? So I guess that's the idea of like, okay, yeah, how do you know you're not like convincing yourself, oh yeah, with AI psychosis, like, oh yeah, this is what I believe and this is this and this is that. How do you know that when you read something online or whatever it is, like, how do you know that information is good information? Well, you just test it against reality. And if it's not information that you can test against reality, because obviously that's not universally true. If you like read about like, I don't know, fucking ancient history, that's not gonna be testable against reality. But the point is, any principle that you learn, because ancient history, if you get it wrong, like, okay, I don't know what the year Hitler invaded Poland, if you get that wrong, it's like, it doesn't really, I mean, yeah, obviously if you're like in a history like test or something, yeah, it might be pretty bad. But in general, like in life, that's probably not gonna affect your trajectory of your goals that much, unless you want to be a historian, of course. But the point is, if it's testable against reality, well, even actually in that case, if you got it wrong on the test, that is a form of reality, you know what I'm saying? Because you're testing against reality right there. But anyway, the point is, how do you ensure you're not wrong? You test against reality. I probably restated the same entire point. I do this a lot, so you're just gonna have to get used to it. But yeah, that's the point. Okay, so this is actually an interesting one, okay? And I was kind of thinking about this, and this is actually super related. So last video, we talked about consumer financing and how it's like the root issue of all, of like the major problems in that people complain about. And I actually have something that's interesting to kind of go on with that. It's not really related, but it kind of is related. And that is I was kind of just thinking through this, like in an odd way, but like, okay, let's just assume for a second you could erase all debt for a second, okay? So would that cause actually a reduction in productivity, because then people are less likely to want to work, right? Like what if, let's just say an individual is, coasting, but because now they have debt and they have to make their bills, now they're forced back into work, so they're forced to be productive instead of just playing video games all day or just chilling. You know what I'm saying? And the idea is like, okay, like consumer financing might act as like a forced productivity for a portion of the population. Okay, maybe there's like a portion of the population that, may not want, if they don't have to work, they wouldn't work. And I actually think this is false in the sense that this ideology, like, okay, yeah, if they didn't have to work, then they wouldn't work, is actually like pretty much false. And it doesn't actually mean that productivity would be expanded. Here's what I mean, right? Hopefully I kind of conveyed that idea right. But like, it's basically, I'll restate it again. So what I was trying to say is like, because consumer financing exists and because a certain portion of people are in debt, it is a forcing function for them to work and then therefore contribute to being productive. But this is actually like it's kind of like a false premise. It's kind of like the entire loop should be rejected because actually it's unproductive. And here's what I mean, right? So when you're forcing people to work and it's like against their will, or it's like you're forcing people to do things that are low, you're removing the margin of error, right? Because like let's just say somebody is under consumer finance debt, they're forced to just take a job because they need to pay it. But it may not be the most productive job that they could take. It may not be the job they want to take. It may not even be a job that's very productive for society as a whole. It might just be a bullshit job that they're taking just so that they can, get the money to pay off their bills, which is actually a negative productivity loop, right? Because that same person, if they had a little bit more buffer, may have actually, decided to start like a different type of business that's far more productive and employ multiple different types of people at doing something that's higher leverage, right? That might be more important to society. You could argue that maybe, okay, there might be like, okay, if nobody had a reason to work, then there might be a portion of people who just sit at home and play video games all day. And yeah, there might be a portion of people that do that, but the point is the offset in people that would actually not do that and the people that would actually choose to work on something that is more productive and solve new problems, there'd be way more people trying to choose to solve new problems because they have a buffer. They have the ability to take a risk and, make a bet on like, okay, I'm gonna start this type of company on doing this, or I'm gonna start this type. Like you could even imagine in my specific circumstance, like if I didn't have like the ability just to kind of not have any expenses and live with my parents, then I wouldn't be starting a company. I'd probably be like working on a sales job, or I'd probably still be in real estate, or I'd be in college, or I'd be like just trying to get like some job somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be taking this risk. And yeah, it may not pan out, but if it does pan out, then maybe my company could be, employing many people. It could be doing high leverage things. It could be solving a real problem, that people have in their businesses, right? So I think you actually have, it's actually, that argument is incorrect. The idea that consumer financing could somehow serve as like some sort of, artificial system to force productivity, in my opinion, is actually anti-productive at the end of the day. Because again, you're not allowing people to take risks. You're basically forcing people to do things that are you're forcing people to do things like maybe that are monotonous, that could be solved. Like let's just say, for example, like a cashier at a restaurant. That cashier might be forced to take that job because they have nothing better to do. But maybe if they weren't forced to take that job, they could have built a solution to make cashier built like an automated system to solve the entire cashier problem or something like that. All I'm saying is that forcing people to take jobs that are low leverage is not productive for society. It might seem like, oh yeah, more people employed is better for productivity, but not really, not necessarily. You know what I'm saying? What matters is long-term productivity, and in the long term, what actually matters is solving consistent problems and expanding the scope and scale of how we can get resources from the earth and then efficiently use those towards expanding. Anyway, point is, yeah, that's a pretty much a bad argument. All right, so now we're going to talk about the next topic, and this one is this is the final topic, by the way. This one is the idea of regret. So I guess the way I would define regret, and this is probably like a loose definition, but it's like it's an action that you have taken that if you were presented with the action today, your beliefs would probably not choose that same action. Basically, like you're looking back and you're like, oh man, why did I do that? Or like that was really dumb, or that was really immoral, or that was whatever. It's just a decision that you probably made that you probably wouldn't make again. Or maybe you would make it again, but you just are kind of mad that you made it. I don't know. I guess that's kind of the idea, right? Obviously, I've had like regret in the past, but I would say what has changed, like basically the idea of regret is that it only is a problem if you ruminate on it, right? It's not really a problem if it has happened, you took the lesson and moved on. The only problem is rumination, right? And I guess the way I like to approach this is like, okay, again, it comes down to the objective. What does this do to my objective? How does being regretful, or you could take this as any emotion, right? You could be like, okay, depressed or like sad or like exceptionally happy. That's the same thing. Like, it's like there's two sides of the same coin. You could be too happy, meaning you're just too content with life, which means you never get anything done. You could also be too depressed, which is also like you never get anything done because you're like too depressed, or too regretful, like oh you're constantly looking back in the past, or there's like these are just really just like the different sides of like the same coin. Basically, it's all like the same thing. It's just like rumination on an emotion over rumination on how you're going to move forward towards your objective, right? And I think the solution is just slowly realizing that obviously one, you can't change anything that happened, and you can also not change anything that's going to happen in the future except what the actions that you take now to affect the future. So the point is you just have to take the lesson and move on, right? And as far as like the is like the, oh, I regret something because, it doesn't abide by my moral code anymore. Well, it's like, okay, for me, it's like, it doesn't really matter. I don't really subscribe to I subscribe to the idea of like my objective, right? It doesn't really matter what I do at the end of the day. If I take the lesson and consistently move on towards my objective, then that to me is the most important thing, right? You're taking the lesson, whatever mistake you made, whatever like, thing you may call, oh, that was immoral that I did, whatever it is, I'm taking the lesson, I'm pushing forward. See what I'm saying? Like, yeah, because at the end of the day, rumination is not going to solve anything. All you can do is take the lesson, make sure you don't make the same mistake again, do your best to basically make sure it doesn't happen, and then move forward. Because rumination doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't matter, like, again, whether it's regret, depression, whatever it is. It's basically just the idea of emotion that stunts your growth, right? Emotion that stunts your growth. And yeah, I mean, this can happen in many forms, right? It's just like, but I feel like the human psyche is meant to be constantly under a form of discomfort. It's like, I think Alex Hormozi brings up the point, like, married people want to be single people want to be married. It's like, it never really ends. The human psyche is to be uncomfortable. So it doesn't, like, as in, like, you don't have to add to that discomfort by constantly ruminating on something that is, that already happened or something that you can't change. So yeah, that's, I guess the end of the day is just, okay, like, again, I think a lot of things become much, much easier in life if you just set an objective and then optimize towards that objective, because then, the things it kind of just makes everything a lot more simple, because then you can just take every single decision in the frame of, okay, does this get me towards or away from my objective? And obviously, nobody's gonna be 100% perfect, right? It's like, it's like you're never gonna perfectly make every single decision that is like, okay, I'm gonna stick 100% to this. I'm never gonna, watch an extra minute of social media. I'm never gonna do anything. It's like, obviously you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna not be perfect. But the goal is to just optimize to be better and better. And over time, your habits, like, if I look at myself today and I look at myself 2 years ago, my habits today and my life today is like almost incomparable to what I was 2 years ago, even though I had a similar mindset. It's just I constantly iterated on, getting better with my diet, getting better with, getting distracted less, getting better with focusing more, getting better with doing more work, getting better on understanding topics more, before I make, erratic decisions, just doing more. My life today is like inconsiderable. It's like totally completely different. It's like a 180 to what, I used to have. Like, now I'm pretty much going to bed, waking up at a consistent time every single day, no matter if it's the weekends. I remember when that was basically impossible for me. One day I'd be going to bed at like 9, the next day I'd be going to bed at like freaking 1 a.m. It's just like, it's just, sometimes it is like the kind of the small things that just add up. But yeah, I guess I don't even know where I started where I ended with this, but I guess the point is, I think life becomes a lot easier. I think just in general, we're talking about regret, but I think in general, life becomes a lot easier if you just set an objective and then optimize towards that objective. It makes, again, I think I talked about it last video, but what is morality? It is downstream of an objective, right? You can't define morals without an objective. You can't define a lot of things without an objective. And if the objective is measurable, it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I guess that's the entire video. We talked about, everything that happened since the last one, mostly just DMs, outreach, trying to get more clients. We talked about the idea of quitting. And we also talked about the idea that consumer financing could potentially act as like a productivity forcer or enforcer or whatever, but that's obviously not true. And then we also talked about the idea of like regret and the idea of, I guess just you could call it like powerful emotions. But anyway, and then we talked about, and then I guess that kind of migrated into constantly, you should choose an objective and probably just optimize for that. That's the simplest way to, it's the simplest way to it's an easier way to make decisions to optimize towards an objective. But anyway, that's just a hypothesis, I guess, that I have. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, that's the entire video for today. I guess this one was kind of all over the place. I feel like this is one of I feel like this video as a whole is just one that was more kind of erratic than my usual video. I don't know why I feel that, but maybe it's because I'm tired or something. But I feel like it was less coherent than my usual videos. But I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this video is good. You guys can tell me in the comments. Anyway, that's it. Yeah, again, for the next few weeks, let's just keep doing those DMs. Let's keep racking it up. Hopefully I can get, honestly, if we can, it'd be like a dream come true, bro. If I can literally get one client that's paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month, that's getting 50 to 60 leads a day, or 100 leads a day, right? that means the business could actually work. Because it's like I'm still in the state of like I don't really know if this could actually even like be feasible, because it's like I can't really charge small businesses more than $500, right? I don't really know if I could deliver a service at $500 profitably, but maybe I could. But like I don't really know. Like maybe I have to change the service completely. I have to like get rid of the human element a lot. I don't really know, but if I can land a consistent paying client, at like 4 or 3, if I can land a consistent client at $3,000 plus, right? Then that means like the business is actually like really viable. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's an outsourced person doing the follow-ups. It's not me doing the follow-ups. If that can happen, if I can just land one, obviously that implies that I can get more. So yeah, I mean, that's just, I don't think that'll happen by the next video, obviously, but that's the goal, to get a few concurrent clients and just to land one of those, a bigger client. If that can happen, that would mean all this 12 month, all these nine months now so far is not gonna be for nothing. You know what I'm saying? And if I can't do that, well, I guess we're just gonna have to keep going. You know what I'm saying? Just gonna keep going. I'm gonna have to be, just chilling, just keep going, not chilling, but consistently working hard, doing all those DMs, and yeah, just iterating. I feel like even if I can't do that, land like a $3,000 to $5,000 client, there's got to be like some way to skin the cat, right? I can like edit the service. I can think of like 4 ways I can test editing the service, right? Removing the human element, going to lower like solopreneurs, except completely removing the human element. Just like mostly automated messages and maybe like 1 or 2 human calls or something. I don't know. There's definitely something I could do. But anyway, point is, we'll keep iterating. We'll eventually find product market fit. I'm sure about it. And then from there, it's just improving. Improving the business, getting more clients, fixing the back end, all that. Anyway, yeah, I've been rambling on for a while now. So thanks for watching the video. On to the next video. Expand the scope and scale of productivity. Find the meaning. And yeah, let's go onward.